If I'm going to be completely honest here, grenade regeneration is a fantastic mechanic, and I'm really surprised that it's taken DICE this long to come up with an idea this good. For those that are not in the know, there have been some people who I otherwise consider very reasonable taking some absolutely idiotic stances on this new mechanic of grenade regeneration, which is now being tested in the CTE. See, the problem with grenade resupply is that you have to choose between whether you're going to let the supports sit on an ammo crate all day and chuck grenades every 3 seconds into choke points in Operation Locker, or are you going to let the other players, the assaults, the medics, the engineers, what have you, are you going to let them die of old age before they are able to resupply a grenade when they come across an ammo pack on an objective? Battlefield 4 took some steps to reduce grenade spam. Unfortunately, it made it just about impossible to actually get a grenade out of an ammo crate if you did happen to come across one in-game. And so I think they went a bit too far with Battlefield 4. You essentially had one grenade per life, and you effectively could not resupply them. Or rather, it took so long sitting on an ammo crate doing nothing that you might as well just redeploy and get on with your life. This was such an issue that grenade resupply for anyone not support was more of a meme than anything else. So now DICE has taken a really interesting new approach to this issue. Grenades will regenerate every 30 seconds or so, or every 12 seconds if you're sitting near an ammo crate. Because ammo packs instantly resupply at least most of your entire inventory, they have simply been disabled from resupplying grenades because it was extremely broken early on in the game when you were playing support and you could just sit there chucking grenades and ammo packs alternately for the rest of time. So grenade regeneration means that you no longer have to wait 3 years on an ammo crate, if you happen to find one, to get your grenade back. No longer will it take less time to redeploy than get your grenade. Rather, you will now have grenades as the classes that aren't support when you actually need them, but you will not have grenades so often that you can simply close off an entire corridor for the rest of the game. I really like this change. 30 seconds in Battlefield 1 is an extremely long time, and it's not going to cause any spam issues. Really, for all of you that are complaining that this is going to somehow increase grenade spam, I highly recommend that you go actually play the game and see if it does for yourself. And you'll find out the case is that it really goes a long way towards reducing it, not increasing it as you think it does. I had originally just intended to do this video on the RSC-17, but of course there is that bit on grenade regeneration since I didn't know there was going to be so much idiocy around the whole issue. But I also wanted to talk a little bit about some general CTE feedback, such as the progression system, the maps, the new mechanics, and also I wanted to talk a little bit about each of the new weapons since I have at this point unlocked them all. Gameplay is of course going to be a mix since I so far have not had much CTE time. And here's a little fun fact for you. Currently, I live on the West Coast. I have 140 ping to West Coast Conquest servers. 140 ping to West Coast Conquest servers. However, Domination servers, I have a nice 30 ping to, also West Coast. However, if I try to play on an East Coast Conquest server, I get around 110 to 120 ping. So if I want to play Conquest, the least ping I can get is 110. I do not know if this is a problem on my ISP's end or if it's somewhere else down the line. Obviously, the Conquest and Domination servers are located in different areas, which is why I get drastically different latency to the two compared. When I first picked up the RSC-17, I thought it was absolute trash. My evaluation of the gun has gone through several cycles. I then thought it was good, now I think it's just kind of mediocre. I'm glad I didn't write this commentary when I first picked it up, because I don't think my first impression is accurate. As usual, first impressions of Battlefield 1's guns are usually not accurate because they usually have some functionality that you don't discover until you've gotten about 500 kills in with the weapon. When I first started using it, I would have told you that it was too unforgiving. Now, I say this as someone, just look at my stats. I have 4,000 Model 835 kills. I pretty much exclusively use a weapon with a 5-round magazine and a 3-bullet kill. Unforgiving weapons are pretty much all I use. Now, unforgiving is fine with the Model 8, but not without a sufficient reward. And I don't think the RSC-17's damage output is enough of a reward to justify how unforgiving it is. With 3 kills per magazine, for body shots up to 45 meters, it can obviously kill 3 times the number of people per magazine, body shots only, as the Model 8 can. Now with the sub 200 rounds per minute rate of fire, it ends up being equivalent DPS to around a 340 RPM 3-bullet to kill SLR with a 9-round magazine. That is to say, it's going to be faster than the Cherrigotti, but slower than the Model 8, that is to say within 45 meters. Outside of 45 meters, you get 2 kills per magazine, and your damage per second is so awful that even the Model 8 25 outdamages it. Yeah, the super close quarters Model 8 that's only good in close quarters manages to outdamage the RSC-17 outside 45 meters. In fact, the only thing that you manage to beat outside of 45 meters is the garbage tier M1907. In terms of point-blank damage per second, the Model 8 is of course always going to be on top. It's followed by the RSC-17, which is in turn followed by the Cherigoti, the M1907, and the Luger, because they all shoot at 300 RPM, which is in turn followed by the Mondragon, and finally, right at the bottom is the SYM-Duck 1916. From 0 to 45 meters average DPS, of course, the Model 835 is going to be on top again, followed by the RSC-17, followed by the Luger 1906, then the Cherigoti, then the Mondragon, then the M1907, then the SYM-Duck, and then the Model 825. From 46 meters on out, the Luger 1906 is, of course, going to be your best option, period. The Mondragon and the Model 8, well, the Mondragon's kind of ahead of the Model 8, but the Model 8's not that far behind. So I sort of consider them a tie. This is followed by the SYM-Duck 1916, followed by the Cherigoti, followed by the Model 825, and finally we get down to the very bottom, except for the 1907, the RSC-17. In other words, at 46 meters out, it's got one of the worst damage outputs in the game. Now that aside, if we're only looking at close quarters, if you miss a single shot with the RSC, you get the worst medic DPS in the game, bar none, period. So my initial impression of this is that why would anyone who could use this effectively, that is to say shoot at 100% body shot accuracy, why would they not just go ahead and use the Model 8, which has better damage output at all ranges, especially outside 45 meters? It's absolutely no secret that the RSC-17 has a monster skill overhead, and I'm really having a good chuckle about that comment that I read on the video when I introduced the RSC-17 before anyone had tried it, who said that it was going to be a no-skill casual weapon because that's about as far as you can get with the RSC-17. Anyway, its skill overhead is so great that I think it's substantially higher than the Model 8. Personally, I even think that the Model 8 is more appropriate for the typical player than the RSC-17. The Model 8, you really only need 60% accuracy per engagement, which is not that hard to approach. A lot of people can manage that. It doesn't matter if you miss 2 bullets and you're 5, because you still have extremely good damage output, meaning that hipfire and mag dumps are both quite viable for the Model 8, since you don't need to hit every single one of your shots. Now that aside, I think it's very fun. It's as a novelty and an aim training weapon, but I will not in any way consider it a Model 8 replacement at all. Now both of these I think are skill cannons. The Model 8's weakness is pretty much entirely in positioning, because you can only have 1 kill, 2 kills max, per magazine, whereas I think the RSC-17's weakness is in aim. In other words, without 100% accuracy, you're always better off with the Cherigoti if you want 3 kills per magazine. Now moving on to some other classes, we have the Rebel Carbine, which is basically just a more accurate alternative to the MP18. I personal preference is all, I still prefer the MP18 Trench, since the Rebel is not that good at range compared to some of the support weapons, and I'd rather just have the hipfire to ensure that I can deal with 900 RPM Automatico users in close quarters. And because of the fact that the Rebel has to pretty much ADS for every relevant engagement, its DPS is not so great, even though 550 RPM is pretty good for Battlefield 1. The Shosho is clunky at best. It kills fast when you actually hit your shots, which unfortunately is not easy due to the combination of recoil, the low rate of fire, and supports, I'm not fond of them, some people are, supports weapon mechanics, which is to say, the very inaccurate second bullet. I actually found that the most useful mid and close range technique seemed to be a 300 RPM click rate in semi-auto single shots. I mean, it's only 360 RPM in, so it's not like you're losing a whole lot. The fact that this gun is select fire is a saving grace, because it would otherwise be very hard to leverage that low weight fast reset time. Telescopic, on the other hand, can't be clicked in semi-auto at the same rate of fire, but it's kind of interesting when it's bipoded. That said, I'd still prefer a Bonnet Mercier at range any day over the Shosho. If anything, I think this gun could really use a storm preset to get rid of some of that atrocious horizontal recoil, which tends to very much throw your aim off. As for the maps, I haven't had my resident bug yet pronounce them for me, so you'll have to bear with me as I butcher their pronunciations. Soissons has an excess of tank sites, to say the least, and I don't think the combat is too focused around the single point. Large maps that approach this well have been Sinai Desert with Delta and Charlie points, and Golmud Railway of Battlefield 4 Alpha Bravo points. There's also too much walking. I don't like having to spend most of my time walking between points of action. I like there to be a concentrated central point that's usually contested, and unfortunately Soissons doesn't seem to have that. Fort Vaux, or Operation Locker 1918, is of course wonderful because I hate vehicles, and I love the fact that there aren't any vehicles on this map. Rupture has too many vehicles, especially planes, and again, too much walking and a lack of a central contested point. The bridge ought to be the central contested point that I so desire, but unfortunately it doesn't have the surface area or the cover, or I'm not sure what, but it never seems to be very good for a contested point. And that's really my biggest gripe with the last non-Vaux maps, is that there doesn't seem to be any clustered infantry-centric combat. I want to shoot people. I don't want to run away from tanks all the time. Where are the central contested points? You know, Zavod had a ton of vehicles, but that map was great because you could go into the two central CD points and not see any tanks the whole game. I mean, sure, the tank could drive in to Delta Point, but it was usually a terrible idea because there would be engineers all over the place. So what I'd really like to see in the future is more maps with flags that are simply antithetical to vehicles. I want my infantry action concentrated at a flag where, as infantry, as medic, I can actually do something meaningful without having to run away from a tank every 30 seconds. As a final point, I'm actually kind of glad that they made us unlock manually these new weapons to attest the assignments. All the assignments were quite nice and very doable, not too easy, not too difficult. But the one that was an absolute pain was the MP18 shoot 20 headshots requirement. The problem is that not the fact that you have to hit headshots, but the fact that you have to finish your kills with headshots. As I've said many times before, finishing a kill with a headshot is probably the least desirable thing that you could do. Your first and second bullets, those should be your headshots. The rest, which are, that is to say, your least accurate shots, should be body shots because you can't reliably hit the head once you've left a 2-bullet burst or so. I'd say that it took me about 50 kills, which all involved headshots, before I finally finished this assignment, because of the fact that you have to finish your kill, not start it, with a headshot. If this is possible with the current progression system, I would really like to see this altered so as to be, rather than a finish 20 kills with headshots, that you have to have 20 kills, and at least one of those shots per kill has to be a headshot. I think that would be a much better way to approach this issue. It was very frustrating to get like 3 headshots in a row and finish the kill with a body shot and not get anything towards the assignment. I believe that is everything that I had intended to discuss here. If you would like me to address anything else in particular, please, I don't know, leave a comment, send me a message on Twitter, I don't really care. Note that for those of you who have been asking, I am planning on doing a response to Rags, who says some pretty inane things about Battlefield 4's weapon balance at some point, probably next week. Anyway, hope you enjoyed.